Hi guys, thanks for coming out. This is cool, except for the staring at me part. I'm just gonna kind of walk you through this. This is kind of a survey of different works throughout my career up to now. As you can see, I work in very different mediums. We're gonna start with the photography since that's the only thing I have a degree in. So we actually have a photograph here that's from my first show in Los Angeles. So we're really getting like something from the first thing to the last thing, which is on that wall. I photograph myself as different characters to talk about my mixed race identity and how we navigate through the world, how others see us. I identify as a person of color, but most people see me as white. So I take on these different characters to talk about how we judge a book by its cover. I might be this, but I might be that. And you know, just because we show up a certain way doesn't mean that's our full story. So as we go through this, if you have any questions that come up, feel free to engage with me that way so I can really get to the nitty-gritty of these things. So another part of my practice includes sculpture and collage. So in the corner here, we have this cute little curio cabinet. Feels like grandma's house, but it's really highlighting this figurine that is maybe something that feels familiar, but it actually doesn't exist in the world until I make it. It's created from two found antiques, the salt and pepper mammy shaker, and these collectible Royal Daltons, white women in ball gowns. So the heads are removed from each. The mammy head goes on the body of the girl in the dress. She's seamlessly put back together, and she now gets out of that place of servant, service, and becomes this fragile, beautiful object that needs care. Some of these things on the collages, these plaques that maybe we also see in grandma's house or my house, are just simply repainted in this kind of simple gesture, but to just kind of be more inclusive. These works are kind of, this is actually from the most recent show I've had called Strange Fruit. This collage work here was from another body of work I did called Look at Them, Look at Us. So you really kind of can maybe see that I'm breaking down all these kind of racial issues in American history. I pull from vintage magazines for my collage work in order to talk about how we haven't really come as far as we like to think we have. In looking through all the magazines that I pull from the early 40s, 50s, 60s, in a lot of the major magazines, Black folks just weren't included in those magazines. So just the act of sourcing the imagery is part of like the processing of how white America excludes a big part of their history. My hope is that when you come into this show, yes, you come back and you see like a deeper level each time you kind of shed some belief system that you might have. I guess we can talk about this installation now. So often I'm known for creating these kind of psychological spaces, I like to call them. They feel like familiar. Again, this kind of nod to home, nostalgic imagery. But the base of, if you really noticed that the base of my work really pulls from vintage wallpaper, as you see in the collage works. And in making, or where this particular installation really kind of came to life was me looking through where I sourced my vintage wallpaper. And I ran across this particular paper. And I don't know if any of you have really had a chance to visualize what's happening on the wall there, but there is this kind of antebellum scene with an enslaved family and this kind of well-to-do white family. And I thought to myself, whoa, this is really old paper. Wow, this is crazy. And then I looked at when it was from, and it said the 70s. So then I had this kind of feeling like, who wants to still live with this imagery? And so I decided to create an installation that might portray the setting of where that paper might live, so that those of us that put a blind eye to these issues can kind of unpack that. Because the people that know, right? We know. And then those of us that don't have some work to do. So this show invites you to do that work, and there's not going to be like a lot of hand holding. It's an open space to have conversations with each other. Yes, I'm here now and I can answer some questions, but I really want y'all to like dig in and find like different juxtapositions and what that means in the way things are arranged in this particular installation. And then kind of the end piece here, there are a few more collages here, but this is the most recent shelf piece I had for my show, Strange Fruit. And I'll just give you a little info on that show, where I called it Strange Fruit, but the scene I set up was, what if white folks were at the receiving end of lynchings? And so, you know, this move of like having the Royal Dalton figurine become a black woman is not necessarily connected to that part. I also had these pedestals with the Royal Dalton white ladies' heads on pedestals that were enlarged to like walk down this, I don't know, forest of heads on pedestals.
How did you decide on some of these objects? Are they collected over time, or did you specifically select them for your ideas around this environment here? You do lots of other environments, other types of living rooms, kitchens, bathrooms, things like that.
Yeah. In those, like usually I'm celebrating black family homes as a way to like show something that doesn't usually get shown or celebrated. And so in this rendition, it's a bit different. But a lot of this stuff came from Detroit and Chicago. I think there's probably a few estate sale things where I got a lot of things in one shopping spree. But it's kind of like collaging for me. I just kind of know what the thing needs, I guess. And then as I build it, it kind of just becomes its own thing. Space is called Black, White, and Red All Over. So there's color moves in there, but that's a pretty dark book, if I believe that one's the Hitler book. Yeah. And it's interesting how, you know, we can walk into someone's space a million times and not really pick up on the little details. So I'm kind of displaying them and celebrating them as a way to like pause and really like consider the multiple meanings that they could have, or how you could read it one way and another person could feel really threatened by it. It was like me thinking as a kid, like, you know that joke, what's black, white, and red all over a newspaper? But then I was like, I'm black, white, and I have red hair. I don't know. It was kind of cheesy, but. But this was like when, you know, during the time when Trump was being elected. So I was thinking about those things in terms of like what the color symbolizes, like what red symbolizes in like a political way, and how it can be threatening. It can be lovely and beautiful too, depending on the context. But I was kind of playing off the more threatening side of it, I guess. Or even thinking of it as like, I mean, this is a little dark, but like blood or like pools of the history, you know, like of people's lives that have been taken. It's just this kind of reference to time and history and how, and the clock isn't moving. Like, we're not moving, we're not advancing, we're repeating the same mistakes over and over again.